programa de hoje, McGhee sai de uma vida de crime e violência para os holofotes do UFC. Mike Malott relembra suas várias jornadas como treinador, antes de deixar sua marca no octógono. Sentamos com Drew Dober enquanto ele assistia aos pesos leves bem de perto em Austin. E o sul-africano Dricus Du Plessis relembra sua estreia no UFC. O peso galo McGhee vem de uma vida marcada por crime e violência. Determinada a romper esse ciclo, sua mãe decidiu sair com a família de Detroit para o Arizona, onde Marcos embarcou em uma jornada desafiadora. Transformar seus traumas para se tornar o lutador espirituoso que é hoje. Vamos a Fênix para saber mais sobre essa história inspiradora nesta edição de Origens.
What a story it has been for McGhee.
I like this guy's attitude.
Gratitude is at the center of everything in McGhee's orbit. That take came from his humble beginnings where he told us he didn't have a lot of expectations for his life.
I believe my past has molded me in a huge way. I have been through so many downs that I'm never going to be in a position where I look down upon other people who are down. I've been there. I've been through it. There was a point in my life where I didn't believe I was worth anything. For someone like me to be able to be who I am now and come from all the things that I've done and been a part of throughout my whole life, I think anybody can.
What a story it's been for McGhee.
I was born in 1990 in Detroit, Michigan. I have two brothers and one sister. My little brother is the baby and my older brother is the oldest. I was the third boy, so I'm the middle child. Detroit, very hostile territory, you know, a lot of craziness going on. There's a lot of violence, a lot of death in that community. Those were the things that you were surrounded around. Growing up, I didn't really know my father very well and got caught up in that type of lifestyle that came along with being in Detroit. He was in jail since I was about 4 years old. In the late 80s, early 90s, my father got wrapped up into gang lifestyle, selling drugs and those types of things, trying to make ends meet. In 1996, he went to jail and got charged with murder. He was looking at doing 16 to 32 years. When you go to jail for something like that, you obviously have enemies. So my mom was like, all right, let me get them out of Detroit so that we can give them a chance at least. All we really were looking forward to there was probably the same type of things that my dad was getting wrapped up in. So we moved to Arizona. My mom was loving. She did her best. A lot happened to her, so trying to raise children was very tough for her. As a kid, I understood we didn't have much. We were constantly trying to make ends meet, which meant falling short on bills here, falling short on things here. So we moved around at least 20 times. I did play different sports at different points in my life, but I was never consistent. Couldn't stick with the same team because we moved so much. Couldn't stick with the same sport because we couldn't afford to play those sports. Earlier on, it was harder to make friends just because I was very standoffish. I used to show up to schools and be like, hey, who's the toughest guy here? Who's that guy who I gotta worry about? And I'd start problems. I got kicked out of school for having an altercation with my principal. So I dropped out of high school. I felt like I failed. For me, nothing was ever solidified. One thing that was solidified was me getting my skateboard and going out into the street and skating in the neighborhood. When I'm skateboarding, I feel present, I feel free. I'm giving my undivided attention to something that's healthy. I feel like I have purpose. I wasn't out getting into more fights or being violent or doing other dumb things because I was focused on skateboarding. A lot of the things that we were still surrounded in were not who I was. Selling drugs, hanging out with gangs, smoking, drinking, things that could have got me caught up. I had heard it earlier on in life that I was gonna be like my father, you know, and I never thought that I would go down the path to him, but I definitely thought that I could, and I knew I had it in me to do those things. And then one day, I was 18, me and my stepdad got into a fist fight. My mom kicked me out of the house. My father, he got out of prison when I was about 17. We moved in with him, and everything was okay at first. But then hostilities started to break out. So from that point, I slept in the park for a while. I was very confused, very lost, very frustrated with where I was, who I was, and where I thought I was gonna be. I didn't know what I was gonna do until my good family friend took me in. Their family was great to me. I stayed there for about a year. They gave me my own room, took me to go get clothing, helped me get back into school, got a job. They just helped me kind of get back onto the right track again. It was a moment of like, oh, this is normal life. My focus clicked, and then my surroundings clicked. I knew I needed to do something, and fighting was something that I had done. I had been in so many street fights, all these altercations. I think I'm good enough to at least start the next step and try to do this. After I trained for about 2 months, they're like, we gotta fight for you. And I was up for it. I didn't know the difference between unsanctioned and sanctioned fights at the time. It was in a bar. It was the first time I had been a part of any type of event like that. I ended up knocking a guy out in the second round. And that's kind of how everything started. I had like 5 more unsanctioned fights, and then they got shut down and it wasn't a thing anymore. So it was like, okay, well, we need to get into real organizations. What does that look like? The most big things for me is just challenging myself, seeing how good I can be at this thing. To fight for the sake of fighting and seeing how good you are. All this work I'm putting into myself, at some point you want to test that.
1, 2, 3.
Ironically enough, I go in, I lose my first 2 amateur fights. I wasn't ready, and it showed. I realized that I couldn't just show up to the gym whenever I wanted. I needed structure behind what we were doing to not only build the skill, but build the confidence as well.
Nice.
From that point on, I had 3 more amateur fights. I ended up finishing 2 of them by knockout, and then 1 by submission. After I finished that one, I was like, man, I think maybe I can go pro. Maybe I'm on to something here, you know? When I finally turned pro, I focused on getting better. I accredit a lot of my growth to my team. I focused on being on every practice that I could be, being a part of them, being a part of their camps. I focused on consistency during that time. I go out in my first professional fight against a guy who I thought was tough, and I go out and I knock him out in the first round. It was epic. I was like, man, the start of something, right? Is fighting in my blood? I would have to say a yes. How many people really want to walk down that alleyway with one person and find out who's going to come back out of that? I don't feel like a lot of people want to do that. My fight against Luciano Ramos, he was a tough guy. And then in the second round, I would find a uppercut right hook, and that finished him off. I'm a striker. I love striking. I'm comfortable there. I find shots really well there, and that's where I want to be.
Marcus the Maniac McGhee.
After that fight, I went through months with no fight lined up. Things started to slow down. God said, sit still and wait, but be diligent. So I sat still. I know that my performances were speaking for themselves. I was finishing fights and I was doing it emphatically, and that's what they like to see. And then I get the call from coach. Hey Marcus, we looking to fight in the UFC this weekend?
Big moment for Marcus McGhee, and near the UFC Apex on just a couple of days' notice, DC.
Let me tell you something about Marcus McGhee. Explosive. He's a guy that has all the skills to be in the UFC.
I never doubt any person. On any given day, all these guys could really hurt somebody. So in the UFC, I think there's the highest caliber of that. I'm not even thinking about what this guy wants to do to me. I'm just seeing him. It's just a silhouette of somebody in front of me when that cage closes. It's all about what I'm gonna do.
Oh! Left sat down Newson, and now McGhee looking to pounce. Trying to get the arm under the chin. It's getting close, and there is the tap. Marcus McGhee earns himself his first win by submission.
My first UFC fight, I get a rear naked choke. On a black belt, mind you. It was crazy that I got a submission on my first UFC fight. The feeling of the first win was great. I felt accomplished. No one can take that away from me. I feel stoic. I feel I've done all the things I need to do to just let myself be present and see and feel whatever comes. Whether it's pain, whether it's pleasure, whatever it is, just be free.
One shot, and that's all it took.
Gratitude has been the word that you've used a lot this week. Talk about how you're feeling right now in regards to everything with your career? Because right now, it could not seem to be going better.
Yeah, just grateful. You know, this is short-lived. A lot of us think that this is gonna be forever. It's not gonna be forever, and I pray that I get years and years of this, but this is just now, you know, and I'm gonna use it and be grateful for every moment I get. Life didn't have to work out this way for me. Better people have suffered worse things. When I look back, I'm absolutely proud of myself. It's about the person who I've become. Loving husband, caring father, all these things that I really thought I couldn't be.
Ooh, oh man, he looking good today though. He came out to show out. Give me that.
Still good defense.
I feel as though every moment that I've been gifted, I should be grateful for.
Maybe next time, bro.
Me and my father, our relationship is better than it's been in years. He just moved back about 6 months ago, and during that time, our relationship has become substantially better.
Look good.
Those good.
Yeah.
Family gatherings are popping nowadays, but now we got the space. We invite the whole family over. They're a lot of fun. I do appreciate you guys being able to come through and, you know, have this time. It's great that we get to spend time like this anyways, you know,
Yes.
and especially after everything and life, how life has made its crazy turns, you know, and
Oh yeah.
so I just appreciate you guys and really look forward to a whole lot more of this as well, you know. We're safe here, we're loved here, we're abundant here. That's my main focus. In the future, I would love to hold the belt. Breaking into top 15. I think that'd be a huge accomplishment. I'm not too overly focused on what's to come. I just want to keep on performing and build something that my family can flourish off of, and it could change the scheme of our lives.
Marcus, the Maniac McGhee!
Muitos treinadores de MMA tiveram uma carreira nos esportes de combate antes de passarem ao papel de mentor. Para o peso médio do UFC, Mike Malott foi o contrário. O canadense obteve sucesso como treinador no mais alto nível antes de focar sua atenção em uma carreira no UFC. Essa jornada está rendendo frutos, já que Malott vem se tornando um dos lutadores mais promissores do Canadá. Para saber mais sobre sua história, fomos a Burlington, nesta edição de Foco de Lutador.
The UFC's return to the Great White North is officially upon us.
When the UFC comes to Canada, it creates these massive resurgences in Canadian MMA. I want Canadian MMA to rise back to greatness, to the level we were at when George St. Pierre was at his peak and in his prime. I want to get back to that. I grew up in Ontario, Canada. Our family was big on sports, so grew up playing hockey like most Canadian kids, wanting to play in the NHL and wanting to be a hockey superstar. Realized one day that I kind of suck at hockey, so it wasn't in the cards for me. We were all really competitive with one another growing up. My youngest sister, she plays rugby. Lauren was the star figure skater, and Jeff was killing it on the ice. We're all pretty athletic, all kind of found different sports that we gravitated towards. Somewhere around 13 or 14, I started training MMA. I remember watching it on TV and absolutely loving it. One in particular, UFC 53, it's called Heavy Hitters. Probably have watched that DVD like 100 times. David Loiseau, spinning back kick, Charles Chainsaw McCarthy. Andrei Arlovsky win by TKO. Rich Franklin win his middleweight title for the first time against Evan Tanner. I fell in love with fighting and I knew my goal was to go to the UFC. I didn't have any proof as to how I was going to do it, and I was a little bit, honestly, delusional at the time, but it kind of worked out. I moved down to Sacramento to Team Alpha Male at 23 years old. I had watched a lot of those guys fight in the UFC. I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in the room.
Go, past 3 people.
So I don't know if I got burnt out, lost the passion, whatever it was. It was like I wasn't in love with the sport as a competitor. So I called Faber and told him, you know what, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I think I'm done. He's like, well, you're really technical. You know the team, you know the fighters. Like, do you want to try and coach? Like, yeah, sure, why not? right off the bat, a bunch of the guys are like, oh, hell yeah, do you want to corner me in this fight? Do you want to corner me in that? Learning the game from an outside perspective as a coach and seeing how guys prepared for fights and helping them prepare, and I've made about 30 walks to the UFC cage. That's invaluable experience.
Oh my goodness.
Cornering Uriah Faber in Sacramento when he came out of retirement to fight Ricky Simone was so cool. We're waiting for his song to come on. We're bouncing the back. They're like, all right, we're gonna count you down when to start walking. Camera comes on in 3, 2, 1, and then the building starts vibrating. Everybody's screaming, and Faber just starts getting his swagger bounce on, and it's like, dude, this is sick for him.
At 40 years old, Uriah Faber, it's like he never left.
Hands high. Let's move.
It was like a 50-second knockout or something.
Steps in. It is a TKO. The California Kid.
It's kind of a picture-perfect moment. Cornering the last several fights, I was like, this is amazing. But I also wish I was the one getting in there. I think I just needed some time off competing to get hungry again. When I got the call for Contender Series, I just burst into tears. You know, I couldn't believe it was happening. Like, I was so excited.
What's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? How are you?
A month prior, my brother had gotten the call to sign with the Winnipeg Jets. It just felt like a cool parallel for us, where he got the call to the NHL and I got the call to the UFC.
Yeah, if I had a message, man, it's just go out there and make the most of this. Soak it all up and enjoy how much has gone into this, and go out there and kick ass.
By way of Waterdown, Canada, now fighting out of Sacramento, California, Team Alpha Male. Here is Mike Malott.
The weekend, he played a preseason NHL game, scored a goal, got an assist, and got the second star of the game. And then 2 days later, I fight on Contender Series.
Malott from an athletic family. His brother Jeff was signed this summer by the Winnipeg Jets. Wow, right into a submission attempt after a big swing and a miss from Malott.
That looks tight. Is he out?
Right
yep. No. Oh, he's got it. No, that's
he's
tight.
cranking on it. There's the
Yep.
wow. That'll do it.
That's tight.
Mike Malott inside of a minute.
Crazy.
Not only get a submission win and get signed to the UFC, his number in hockey is 39, and I won in 39 seconds. It's been divine timing with my brother and I.
As promised, this guy is dangerous.
I loved my time in Sacramento, and I loved those guys, but I was homesick the entire time I lived there. I wanted to move home to Canada the whole time. In order to create and be creative, we have to feel at peace, and we have to feel happiness. And I think the fights speak for themselves as evidence for that idea. UFC 273. It felt amazing being the one fighting. This is finally happening. Like, I'm getting to fight in the UFC, and I walked out there, and it was the biggest crowd I'd ever fought in front of.
Entered Mike Malott. He was enjoying life as a coach, but the passion was reignited, and he has been on a roll to get here tonight.
He was so obsessed with getting to the UFC early that he burnt himself out, but coaching really reignited that fire. And now he gets to go and make this official UFC debut, and the guy is very well-rounded.
You ready? You ready? Go! Mike Malott out of the southpaw stance in red, making Gall in the black trunks. Nice combination. Malott with a massive win! Gall is out! How's that for a debut? Proper Mike Malott!
Got the first round knockout. You really couldn't have written it much better than that.
I've been waiting for this moment since 2005. I was just some kid in Waterdown, Ontario, Canada, with a stubborn dream of fighting in this cage with no proof that I was gonna do it, and here I am anyway. Let's go, baby. Let's go, baby. Let's go, Pete. Here we go. Fight on move.
It felt amazing to walk out to UFC 289 in Canada, in Vancouver, and feel the reception of Canadian MMA fans.
Let's go, baby. Your night. Okay. Your night. Go, baby. Your night.
They're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, let's walk. And I start walking toward them, and I feel the people lean forward to high five. I start kind of high fiving, then I feel them really lean forward, and I feel somebody kind of lean on my shoulder. I'm like, these people are falling on me. So I dart out of the way, and the whole left side of the railing all fell. Luckily, fast enough for it to not do any damage. Oh my God, they almost just landed on me. Like, what if I hadn't made it to the cage? Like, that could have been it. Once I got past the railing, I was like, you have a job to do? And that was when it really like shifted. Like, they provided me with fuel, and I'm like, well, I have to return the favor.
Big pop. DC, as we look for one of these 16 Canadian athletes on this roster to take the torch, perhaps Mike Malott can be that guy.
Oh my goodness. Sharp, right on the neck.
Oh, guillotine. Oh, that's that alpha male guillotine.
That's
It's
tight,
tight.
guys.
That's
Oh,
real
that's
tight.
really tight.
Oh, he's
That's
moving.
it.
Proper Mike Malott, backing up the words with action. He finishes Adam Dugan.
6 for 6 for Canadians that night, so it felt like it was a win for me, but it was much more a win for Canada and Canadian MMA.
So the finishing rate remains 100% for one of the best Canadian prospects in the world.
I feel like it really kickstarted the resurgence of Canadian MMA, like letting everybody know we're here.
Hey, let's set one thing straight about tonight. This show is for us. This was a Canadian show.
Representing Canada on the world stage is my passion now, is my fuel, that's my why. We're ready to storm the gates.
O retorno recente do UFC a Austin trouxe 4 lutadores do peso leve nos eventos principal e co-principal. E o peso leve ranqueado e rei dos nocautes, Drew Dober, estava atento. Acompanhamos Drew de perto enquanto ele observava as performances de seus possíveis futuros adversários.
The Octagon lands in Austin for the second time in as many years. Tonight, plenty more reasons to cheer with high-stakes fights and highlight reel-making fighters.
What up, guys? Drew Dober here in Austin, Texas, watching Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner. What a bunch of just killers in the striking department. Man, I got Bobby Green winning this one. I want the winner. It's going to be an interesting matchup with Jalen taking this fight in a 1 week notice.
Underway, Jalen Turner in the black, Bobby Green in the red.
Oh! Very intrigued by Bobby Green's stand-up with his hands down against a 6'3" opponent. But Jalen Turner taking this 1 week notice. I mean, I don't know how much he's prepared for this. You can't prepare for Bobby. As of now, man, Bobby's seeing everything, I feel. But, man, this height is going to cause some problems. Of course, Bobby Green with his legendary mouth. Bobby switching up the stances quite a bit. Trying to find openings. Jalen Turner with a beautiful combination. I feel fighting a taller opponent, fighting with your hands down and relying on head movement is a very difficult thing to rely on. Now, sharing the octagon with Bobby Green, I mean, he's not a guy you can train for. He's so unorthodox. But the more volume you create in front of him, right, the less he's able to read. So, like, I want to see Jalen Turner be able to increase his volume and cause more problems. Oh, Jalen Turner with a big combination. Oh my God, Jalen Turner with the victory. That height is causing problems. Man, what a fight. Bobby Green was relying on his setups with his hands down, but against 6'3", it's really hard to predict those movements. Jalen Turner landed his combination, got on reverse mount, and that was the end of the story.
Declaring the winner by knockout, Jalen the Tarantula.
Jalen Turner, I want that fight, man. He looked great tonight.
It has been quite a night as we arrive at our main event. Beneil Dariush loves the challenge he faces tonight. For him, it's always about the test against the world's best fighters. He's one of them, and believes another is the one who greets him tonight. That would be Arman Tsarukyan.
The top guys in the division, amazing grapplers. Arman being the younger pit bull, but Beneil being the veteran in the sport. I got Beneil, and he always finds a way to win this fight. I'm super excited to see how this goes. Let's go.
Come on, ready, Beneil, ready, fights on.
Very curious on how much stand-up we have in this fight. In the stand-up department, I have Beneil being the craftier vet, being able to time Arman, but Arman keeps that forward pressure, and I think he's going to initiate this wrestling. Now, being in the open stance, the rear side, rear kicks, rear hand is going to play a lot of factor. Beneil already taking the center of the octagon and doing a good job of stepping to the outside of that lead foot.
Say hello to the top 5 of the lightweight division.
Arman with a big knockout. Who would have thought that? Arman is one of the top guys in the division. What a win.
Arman Tsarukyan just flatlined Beneil Dariush in around a minute.
Man, between the co-main and the main event, it's showing that these young guys are hungry, and they're coming for these top venture guys. Man, these Texans got what they paid for. That's it, guys, here in Austin, Texas. Drew Dober signing out. What an amazing night of fights with Tsarukyan and Jalen Turner taking these first-round victories. And, man, it's exciting. It's why I love the sport. I can't wait to get back in there.
O peso médio do UFC, Dricus Du Plessis, afirmou há muito tempo que pretende ser o primeiro campeão sul-africano do UFC. Sua impressionante sequência de vitórias começou em 2020, quando uma luta em cima da hora deu a Dricus a chance que ele precisava para causar impacto. E o homem que eles chamam de Steel Knox não desperdiçou essa oportunidade. A sensação sul-africana relembra aquela noite memorável em minha estreia.
Dricus Du Plessis out of South Africa. He has an undeniable energy about him. He's a finisher, sets a high pace. He's a great athlete, and confidence not an issue, incidentally.
Heading into the UFC debut, my record was 14 wins and 2 losses. I was welterweight and middleweight champion in the UFC organization, and finally got that call, the UFC call.
The World Health Organization declared that the coronavirus crisis is now a pandemic.
Africa was in a complete lockdown. Not even allowed to leave your house. I had some mats and stuff in my house, and I had a couple of teammates move in, so we trained there. UFC called, and they said, "Can you make weight in 10 days?" And I said, "Most certainly I can make weight." I didn't even hesitate. I said, let's go, get on a plane. I'll do what I have to, and I got that fight on Fight Island. Being on Fight Island, the whole moment was so surreal. Finally getting my UFC contract, I didn't take any of that in because it was such a short notice fight that I just told myself, you get in there, you make the weight, you fight, you get your win, and then you can take all of this. My fight week was basically focus on the fight. After the fight, you can really process all of this. My first UFC weigh-in was weird. We had masks on, and here comes my opponent. Well done to him. He has this Joker face, and he had this paint, but I'm talking about a lot of paint. His hair was green. Like, he really looked like the Joker. That was pretty insane to see that. I was like, WWE, here we go.
We are broadcasting to you from inside the Flash Arena Fight Island for UFC Fight Night.
It was very interesting on Fight Night. It was unlike anything, so nobody is allowed in the arena. There's only 2 fights at a time in the arena. The 2 guys warming up and the guys fight. And as you finish fighting, you leave directly because there's not allowed to be a certain amount of people. It was so nerve-wracking because this is completely different to what I'm used to, and it's my first UFC fight.
A main card spot for the beloved South African Dricus Du Plessis. He's a legit fight finisher and a welcomed addition to the middleweight roster.
When they started talking about me and they started talking about the South African and seeing the South African flag in the UFC, seeing the gloves, like, then it first hit me for the first time. This is insane. Being a South African representing my country on this massive stage was probably one of the coolest moments of my life.
This man has been absolutely tearing it up. He really has been patient, earned his time and his place here on the UFC roster, and Perez wants to shut that hype down.
We had 10 days, so there was no game plan at all. The voice in my head said, you are the least prepared for the most important fight of your whole career by far. I immediately stopped my thoughts myself and said, listen, you've been preparing for this moment for 10 years, fight after fight, day after day, working your ass off to be here, and finally realize this moment, and nothing's gonna take this away from me.
Come on, you ready, sir? You ready? Let's dance! Let's dance indeed.
He knew that I was nervous. He knew that I took a fight on very short notice. He knew that was my debut in the UFC. So he just ran across the cage and he was on me. Everything was different. Like the intensity, the power, the technique. And he caught me with one massive body kick. It was really, really hard.
That's a big slapping kick to the midsection.
There was no crowd, so the first time I just heard that slap. And I remember feeling, oh, that was a hard one. I don't want to take too many of those. And I started to figure out his timing.
I think he's a little anxious right now. It's the debut, so you got to calm down and find your rhythm.
I started getting his timing. I started getting a rhythm. I started almost composing myself to the situation, and I started landing. And I landed some big shots with the hands and the kicks, and ultimately landed that big left hook to knock him out.
Oh, he goes down!
That left hook, it landed so perfectly, spot on. That was one thing that we saw. Every time you put him under pressure and he's up against the fence, he turns around for that spinning elbow. So that was the plan, catch him with the left hook on that spin. But I definitely didn't think I'm going to catch him with the first time he tried it. But, you know, muscle memory, well done. My debut exceeded every single dream and expectation I had. It was even better. That was my destiny. I'm really happy I got the opportunity to get into the UFC and live my dream every single day.
E chegamos ao final deste episódio. Até a próxima aqui no Conexão UFC. Obrigada por acompanhar.